Here we go. Ideas to reality at the speed of thought. Get a little bit of a challenge here because I can't see the notes that we started to take on this one. So we'll start to talk through it, and we'll see if the ideas converge with the notes. You should realize we need a second device to get the notes to make this work. So this is Justin. This is a walk and talk inspired by Mark Levy's book, Accidental Genius. Using free writing as access to your greatest thoughts. This is free talking around some different ideas. And brainstorming is fun when we do talking brainstorming. What makes it more fun is when we actually can see some of the results of some of the stuff that we are working on, right? And then the interesting thing about brainstorms is 90%, it's really the experience of momentum that we start to create. Good morning. The experience momentum that we start to create with the brainstorming is what actually makes a difference, not necessarily the result of this. But if we start to take some of the ideas that come out of the brainstorm and make them into something, make them something meaningful on the back end, that becomes interesting. Now, the challenge that you have is like we've got our lives, right? We've got our lives, we've got our work, we've got other things that happen before the brainstorm. So there's a solution that we want to start to create. But then what happens is today's brainstorm is tomorrow's to-do list. And then those to-do lists start to converge with each other. And then you have a workflow issue because then you have too many things to start to work with, right? So the name of the game is you have to get through ideation to some sort of execution or a plan of execution very quickly. So that's what we started messing around with, and it's the whole idea of ideas to reality at the speed of thought. And if you start looking at some of the work about creation and like energy that goes around something, I call it momentum, where the energy is starting to increase around something, that means we're getting closer to one, we're more excited about it, we're making progress in a particular direction, and it's becoming more and more real towards some of the stuff that we actually want to have. Now, if we're doing work, if we're doing, and it feels like we're treading water, which sometimes can be like micro progress that feels like it's not enough progress that we're working towards, but there can also be anti-progress where we're doing action that's taking us in the wrong direction. So people process information a little bit differently. For me, it's very much in the world of like, how does this feel, right? And like, so it feels like momentum is, in place, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's momentum in place, like in reality, moving in the right direction. But when it feels like there's momentum in place, it has us want to put more energy into it, which does create momentum in the right in the right direction. So, other important thing is we start to stack different ways of operating on top of each other. What does that mean? This is like, I'm out walking my dog right now. There's 3 things get accomplished inside of that. Number 1 is my dog gets walked, which is important. He gets some exercise. Number 2, I get a walk, which means I get some exercise, which is important. Let me see if I've got I don't have an ideas to reality banner here. Let me grab that real quick. Ideas to reality. Why does it not? Oh, there we go. Add banner. Boom, got it. So what was it saying? Like, he gets the walk. So he gets the walk. I get the walk. I get exercise. I get energy moving in a great direction, and I get to actually create something. So created 2 things this morning so far. You can see we created the original banner, or the original brainstorm before the session. Now we're creating the live, and then what gets built on afterwards is the transcription of this, which can actually start kicking off some workflows and then having things become real out in the world as people work through them. I'm getting very conscious right now. I listened to one of my audio messages from yesterday, and I saw there were a lot of and you know what I mean inside of that. So I stopped for a second there and going to start working on cleaning up some of the language in some of these and start tracking some of the ums and the ahs and some of the things that need to actually get pulled out. Loom does an amazing job of pulling out that filler language. So there's trainers right now so we can have more authoritative language around some of the stuff that we're starting to create. And as I realized, as I started getting conscious of more authoritative is not the right word, but more convicted language. As I started thinking more about some more of the convicted language, it felt better. It felt better, the stuff that we're creating, and it went from a little bit of more of a meandering brainstorm to a decisive, here's the direction that we're actually going to go. So let me start this over again right here. We can start with a very divergent brainstorm for ways of being able to operate and ways to be able to start. We can start something very divergent. We have a tool called Clef Notes, which is brilliant at creating divergent thinking and starting to converge it into something that is meaningful on the back end. And then, so now we have something that's a little bit packaged, that's consumable by other people. They don't have to go through all the ramblings and all the lefts and the rights from the stuff that we're actually creating. And then we broadcast it out there to people. So we broadcast it out to, number one, so other people can see it and they can give some feedback. And feedback can be ignoring it completely, which 99.9999999% of the world will actually do. They can check in, listen to it for a little bit of a second. They can come in and comment on it, or they can just let it sit there. They can let it sit there out in the world, and marinate and connect with another one of the ideas that they might be thinking about or working through. So what else do I want to say about that? So we get it out there, and then there's a transcript, right? So it's like if there's a couple of different things that happen, if it's like, oh, this is a great idea, this is something that we want to work on a little bit more, then we can have it. Out there. Now that I'm thinking about this, I created a plan to build 100 or to test out 100 products over the next couple of these 90 days or 100 days. Can actually go through in these sessions and start sharing about some of those different products and what they are and how people can start to access them. So that starts to become interesting. So it's we're incubating the ideas and then we're sharing about it. We're marketing them all in the same thing. So this is what Microsoft does is got a whole bunch of mediocre tools coming together, and you got some really great ones, but the whole system of ideas starts to move things through in a meaningful way. Now I'm thinking about how to get the whole system documented and the whole thought process documented so that it can be more meaningful. And I think it's really what the scale is of how we start to create. I shared something a couple of days ago with that I started to build out like my own relationship management tool, and I'm just building it out in Notion. In the morning, it required me sitting down for an hour behind my, with my phone, which was fine, and putting in all of the data, and then realized afterwards that if I just run Otter in the background of the conversations, I can have, and I grab screenshots of what's actually going on. That serves the purpose a lot of capturing capturing the work that we're starting to create, and me dictating in the back end starts kicking off some workflow. So where it takes me, if I'm doing the typing, it probably takes me, I don't know, we'll call it in 25 minutes, maybe you can do 25 entries. When we're doing this stuff over with transcription and audio in the back end, probably can get, twice as much done. And the most important thing is it's not even more production, but it's more production in a more pleasurable way, right? Because it's getting created during walks. So I think the big question is how much work can actually get done while we're out walking and not sitting in front of a computer. So then what you have is you've got the walk and talk type of work, and then the other thing that you have is the relationship building, which is conversations with people one-to-one. The challenge is most of the time that we're spending with people, at least in a work environment, is behind a behind a screen, which is not a amazing experience for people, and is also not effective for getting work done. So those are the two pieces that don't necessarily make sense. Now, meetings, what are messing around with meetings can be forcing functions for connections to get people connected and make sure they're paying attention to something. But the challenge is most of the work has to get done after the meetings are over. So that's what we're trying to solve for here, is how do we just clean up our thinking, which cleans up our communication, which sets us up for building out something new and meaningful on the back end, and starts to kick off some workflow that people can interact with in bite-sized chunks that will get stuff done in a meaningful way. So, right, if we can do a whole bunch of things that are super simple to start to create, in bite-sized chunks, and we can do multiples of those, and we can see momentum happening much more quickly and in a much more pleasurable way. So we want to create ways for work to be a little bit more pleasurable, and so and more health provoking, if that's a word, so that we want to do more of it, and we want to do more of it effectively. And that just starts striking starts reframing the conversation of work-life balance, which people start to look at, right? Because there's the basic premise around work-life balance is work is stressful and life is not stressful. I'm not sure exactly what it is, right? It is, work takes away from and life gives. I guess life does give. But if you start to integrate those and work becomes more pleasurable, right, then it just starts to intersect with life. And then it's just making sure that we're doing things that we love, which if the work is, or is doing things that we love that's a little bit more pleasurable, and then also making sure that we're connecting with the people that's important just to connect with, who might not be related to work, which will typically be family and friends. And I think if you start getting those things in order, then it starts to make sense. It starts to make a lot more sense, and then life becomes a little bit more easy. And now, when life becomes a little bit more easy, people become a little bit more creative. When people become more creative, then problems get solved, right? And then small problems start to get solved, and then some of the bigger problems start to get solved when we're not consumed with basic survival and getting through. And I think that's the thesis, that's sort of the path of like why this work could actually create a little bit more, because creativity with positive intent can heal individuals, and then when individuals heal, then groups get to heal, and then whole communities and societies get to heal. So that's really the thesis, and fun enough for conversation for a dog walk on a Thursday morning. So have an amazing day, and thanks a lot to anybody who's listening.